bring in former Trump attorney Jim Trusty, who left the Trump legal team after the former president was indicted in the federal classified documents case. Jim, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Do you think it's sunk in yet for Donald Trump that his first criminal trial is in all likelihood going to start on Monday?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, he's living this stuff, on kind of a level of adrenaline that the rest of us probably don't share. So I think it's getting pretty real. I think Paula did a nice job laying out potential options, but they're increasingly unlikely. And the more it's obvious that you're just trying to find a tool for delay, the less likely you're going to be greeted with any sort of sympathy when you file that next motion, whether it's with the appellate court or with the trial judge.
If you were still representing Donald Trump, what advice would you be giving him right now about how this is all likely going to go and how he should behave in court?
Well, it's interesting, and I don't want to get too far afield in terms of the prior representation, but I think the bottom line is at some point you really have to shift into the mode of trial and tactical and not worrying as much about the politics. That's difficult for someone who's running for president right now. But as a lawyer, I think your obligation is to say, look, we got to focus on the task at hand because this is a triable case. And this is going to be a case where jury selection that Paula just laid out is incredibly important because there's going to be a real incentive for people to want to be celebrity jurors, to find a way to answer the questions in a way, perhaps dishonestly, that gets them into that magic number of 12 jurors. So there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to be focusing on. I think in terms of courtroom decorum, courtroom behavior, because it's such a I think, creative, which really means weak case, relying so heavily on the credibility of Michael Cohen, that even in New York, President Trump has a shot. So I think the lawyers need to focus on trying the case, on cross-examination, on the right arguments to make. And they want to have a client who's respectful in the courtroom so that the jury doesn't have any risk of being alienated by any of that kind of political atmosphere.
Paula just suggested that one idea that Trump could contemplate to delay this case even further is to fire his attorneys. Do you think he'd go that far?
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, you talk about a spectacle, that'll be crazy. And what would happen is, I assume, is the judge would, number one, not delay the case and say, this is obviously, a bet of your own making. And number two, they'd appoint standby counsel. That might be the same lawyers that are on the case right now. It would make a farcical situation even more farcical, I suspect. So I hope that they don't try to pull that card. It's not going to get them to a delay. I don't think there's any real likelihood at this hour the judge is going to say, okay, fine, you broke up with your lawyers, we'll see you in June. It's going to happen short of a more traditional motion. It's going to happen soon. And really the focus, I think, should have been on that huge avalanche of paperwork that they just received. If you could find things there that are legitimate causes for concern, like, Judge, we have to follow up on this exculpatory information they just dumped on us. If you had concrete evidence from that discovery dump, you might have something to play with. But otherwise, it's kind of a Hail Mary without rosary beads.
When you look at all the cases Donald Trump is facing, obviously there's the classified documents case in Florida that's federal, the January 6th case in D.C. that's federal. You have the Georgia case having to do with the election subversion attempt there. You have this case. Which one do you think he should be most concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, if we have a 2-hour show, we can go through it. But otherwise,
I do have a 2-hour show, but we don't have 2 hours just for you. But yes,
starting now.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, federal prosecutors in the abstract tend to have, long investigations that are supported by a lot of evidence. That's the reason why in federal courts you have well over 90% end up pleading guilty. So those tend to be very tough charges to defend against. Of course, all of the atmosphere is different when you talk about these kind of unique prosecutions of President Trump. So I think, you get kind of lost in the academia of wondering which is the worst case for you if you're defending him. But the bottom line is you got one on the table right now that you have to focus all your attention to, and that's in New York. And I think that even, with the difficulty of picking a jury in New York, that if you get a jury that's relatively fair, you got a shot, because Michael Cohen's credibility is not exactly something to write home about.
Jim Trusty, thanks so much. Appreciate it.